Evening, everybody. It's 7 p.m. on a Thursday, which means that it's time for me to log in, get onto Facebook Live. I've got my computer here with me right now, ready to answer any of your questions and have a chat about this week's podcast. Did you know that in 2018, last year, there were just under 300,000 full-time teaching jobs filled in Australia, serving around 9,500 schools? And that's not even counting TRTs, those of us who are on contract, etc. You know, we're all working super hard. We're making a massive impact on the future of Australia and on those amazing lives of those young people. And yet something, even though we work with so many children in so many schools, something stops us from moving forward. Where's the celebration? Where's the opportunity to share your stories of practice, things that went really well and things that didn't, to talk about the difference that we're making every single day? What is stopping you from moving forward with accreditation, with reflection, with getting that career stage that you deserve? The recognition that you and our profession deserve. We know that right now, you know, teaching hasn't always got the best rep. In fact, I work with a lot of pre-service teachers who sometimes struggle with that idea because they've just invested in the next 4 years of a degree and people keep telling them, oh, why do you want to be a teacher? And of course, those people, because you want to make a difference in the world and you want to have an impact, you want to help the next generation create the best world that we can. It's the most important job in the world. It's about time we started talking about it and celebrating it. As you know, I'm Selena Woodward and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Edufolios and the voice of the Reflectionist Teachers podcast. And in the Reflective Teacher podcast, every week we pick a subject that you've handed over to us to talk about. And this week we talked about that problem, the fear, the things, the barriers that are getting in our way. And I want to go through those with you. I know it was a bit awkward when I was doing that podcast, and I actually framed the whole thing by asking you to think about your mindset. And as we talk today, I would encourage you to do the same thing. So if you're watching this live, hi and welcome. I can see there's one or two of you here already. Matt is currently sat on another computer, ready to answer your questions and paste in links that I randomly suggest. So he's here to answer and help if I can't see the comments, but I do have my computer here on my lap so I can see. And if you're not watching this live, then please don't feel that you can't contribute. Please comment and tell us what you want to tell us, because it's always great to hear from you, and it may even inspire another podcast. We've had 2 podcasts already that we've recorded that were inspired by comments, tweets, and other communications on Instagram. So keep telling us what you want. So let's go back to this conversation about these barriers, because I think it's really important, and I think it's actually almost damaging to yourself as a professional. You should be proud of who you are, and that should be okay. You should be happy, and so should your colleagues be happy to hear about your successes and to support you when you need that help. Okay, but I'm going to share a quote with you before we get into this conversation. And the quote was, and this is what you will find in the podcast and at the beginning of the page, the supporting notes, which you can find at edufolios.org/006. This quote is from a little-known mathematician called Albert Einstein, and it is, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. When you think about the problems, the barriers, the things that stop you from moving forward with reflection, accreditation, career stages, progression, you need to think about the level of consciousness that you are in when you try to solve the problem. Because I genuinely believe that the vast majority of the barriers that you've shared with me over the last few weeks, months, and years are all about mindset and about seeing the world differently. Now, obviously, I have an entrepreneurial streak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this brilliant thing called Edufolios. I wouldn't have invented it to solve a problem that I was experiencing as an English and drama teacher, and it wouldn't have resonated with the thousands of people who use it across Australia. I got used to reframing the problem and looking at it from a different level of consciousness. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. I was on a panel last week for International Women's Day, and I shared a quote that's kind of inspired me to be who I am. And that is, only dead fish go with the flow. And that was all over LinkedIn for a couple of days. It was on a postcard I had at uni. Only dead fish go with the flow. And it's helped me to see things differently. When things have frustrated me in my career, whether that be a pointless assessment that I have to drag my kids through, another initiative that I'm being forced to put into action without any real reason that I can see, then I think about how I can look at that differently. Okay, I have to do this exam. So what can I do with this data or with this opportunity that will benefit my students, myself, my colleagues, or my site? And that's what I want us to do today. When we think about these problems, I want us to reframe them and think about how we can think about all of this stuff differently. And honestly, I think the first thing we need to recognize is that the process of accreditation or the process of registration, of getting those career stages, doesn't have to be about the process of registration, accreditation, or career stages. In fact, the whole point, I strongly believe, of AITSL coming out with those standards was to give us a conversation starter, to give us a place to have a collegial conversation with the same vocabulary, to empower us to learn from each other. If you watch the jolly little animations, it's full of teachers walking through walls and sharing practice and learning from each other. It's not about having to fill in paperwork, pay money, etc. I know that exists. That's not what it's about. That doesn't have to be the spirit of this. So if you can bring it upon yourself to think about this differently, to think about the focus areas and the standards, not as a stick that are there to beat you with, but as something that's in the background that you can choose to use so you can have a conversation with another, then really, honestly, the learning opportunities just open up. Think about that. Think about what you could learn from each other. And think about what in your mind are the barriers preventing you from doing that. Barrier removing is kind of what we do, right? As educators, we teach content and topics. We teach life, right? We teach all sorts of things. But when we see a student isn't able to grasp it or master it, we identify what the barrier is, and then we help them remove it. That's what we do. So it's time that we did that for ourselves too. Okay? So when you think of a barrier that's stopping you from moving forward, let's think of a way to remove that barrier. Now, I talk about 5 of them in the podcast, which you can find at edufolios.org/006, or you can head to iTunes or Google Podcasts or even Spotify and ask for the Reflective Teacher podcast. There you will find me talking on this subject in episode 6. Okay, I'm only going to talk about 2 or 3 of those today. And if it catches your eye and you think, well, actually, I quite like this, then go and listen to the whole podcast, because trust me, there is a lot more there that will resonate with you. The first thing I want to share with you, the first problem I'm going to talk about right now is this one. I haven't been doing this for very long. I can't even consider getting proficiency, highly accomplished lead right now, because I can't be ready yet, can I? The idea that you are holding yourself back from reflecting on your practice, which means, by the way, that you're identifying your strengths and your weaknesses so you can move forward and get better. The idea that you're not doing that because you haven't been teaching for very long is bonkers. If you haven't been teaching for very long, then you need to give yourself even more time, even more opportunity to think, reflect, and grow. It is a way to expedite that process. There is no good time. There is not someone who is older, wiser, been teaching for 50 million years, who is going to do a better job than you are right now. There is no such thing as it's not time yet. How would you even know? You're not going to make it's not going to fail. You're not going to fail by talking about what you're doing and what's going well and what you'd like to grow. The only thing that can happen is you will make progress. So what's stopping you? Another one is it's so much work and I don't have time for that. Now, we talked about this last week. We did a whole episode on how to plan for reflection. So if you go back in the Facebook Lives, you'll hear me talk about that, or head to edufolios.org/005. But genuinely, every teacher I speak to tells me that reflective practice is vital to their progress in their classroom and also to the progress of their students. They have to sit and think about what went well. Otherwise, they'll just end up doing the same thing over and over and over again, whether that be the right thing or the wrong thing. You know as well as I do that this is super important. It's probably the most important aspect of our profession, the ability to reflect and to grow and to learn. That's what makes a great teacher great. So you need to think about why that's not a priority for you. And if it's a pressure that you have at your site, why that's not a priority at your site and what we can do about that. This is super important. And the last one I wanted to share with you is I can't figure out how to put together my evidence. I have no idea where to start. Well, look, there's this great platform called edufolios.org, and that is the problem that we solve. We give you a platform that requires no technical knowledge, and when you put evidence in, it organizes it all for you and shows you what it should look like. We've done that for you. You don't need to go and make any website anywhere else. You don't need a ring binder. You do not need to do one piece of evidence for every focus area. In every career stage, that's 148 different pieces of evidence. That is not you selecting a really powerful artifact to analyze. That's you trying to tick boxes. There are other ways to do this, and we're here to show you how to do it painlessly, stresslessly, and with less work. Okay, go check out edufolios.org right now and grab your 30-day trial and give us a go, because I guarantee we're going to make life easier for you. Those were the three I wanted to quickly discuss with you tonight. I can see we've got 4 people here today. Oh, 3. One's just run away because I noticed them. Give me an emoji right now to tell me how you're feeling today. How's your day gone? Is it a thumbs up, a love heart, a sad face? I'm looking right now on my screen to see what we get. Do we get any responses today? Last week I forgot to move up and down, so Matt can tell me. How are you all? This is a bit of a heavy topic, this, isn't it? What are the problems that we are facing and how are we going to overcome them? And I want to go back to Einstein's quote. If you're thinking, Selena, you're talking on, you've clearly got no idea what it's like out there. I do, trust me. And you're thinking, you don't have a grip on this. This is, we have no time. We've got all of this, that, and the other. Then I want you to ask yourself if you are currently coming at this problem from the same level of consciousness that you created it in, or whether you are able to elevate yourself above that, be innovative, and think about this from a different perspective, to reframe it so you can find the solution. Hey, Jen, trying to finish an essay in your final year. I hope that we are being a suitable distraction. I hope that essay's going really, really well. And I hope that you are doing an education degree, I'm assuming. Give us a thumbs up if you're doing an education degree, because we love the fact that we have new teachers joining. We spoke right at the beginning of this about how some pre-service teachers find it really hard because they're constantly told by relatives and friends, what are you doing? Why would you want to be a teacher? And how this is the most important job on the planet. Why wouldn't you? My goodness. So thank you, Jed. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to reframe this. If you haven't been doing this long enough, that's perfect. That's exactly where you should be to get started. Jen, if you're at uni right now, you should be writing about this essay and talking about what you're learning by completing this essay. I'm sure there'll be heaps of focus areas you could tag later, but the key thing is you write about what you're doing already, whether that's a uni degree, what you've been doing in your classroom, what happened on your relief lesson today that you taught, whatever it is, you write about that first, and then you see what focus areas you can find in there and what artifacts you can get, what quality artifacts you can get to bolster that. It's going to be so much work. It doesn't have to be. This is the reframing. That's exactly what I've spent time doing, reframing this process and making sure you understand it's not about more work. It's about what you're doing already and giving yourself time to write about it. And remember, edufolios.org/005 talks all about that and even gives you a free planner to use to help you plan when and what and how you're going to reflect. Who wouldn't want that? Perfect. And the last one is, I can't figure how to put my evidence together. And we've got you there. edufolios.org does most of that work for you. You just bring the stuff, reflect on your practice, and we will guide you through that process. So if you're interested in the other two issues that I hear all the time, if you'd like to hear more about how you can reframe this problem and overcome it, then head to edufolios.org/006 right now, and you'll be able to get some more insights. Next week, I'm going to be talking about something that came up in one of these conversations, and that is you're listening to the podcast, you're attending the Facebook Lives, maybe you've even done some face-to-face PD, but you're not really sure how to put that into your portfolio, where that should go, how you can connect that back to the standards, and what you can do with that going forward. So in next week's podcast, we're going to be talking about exactly that process, how 1 hour of PD or 6 hours of PD can turn into 20, and how it can go into a story of practice, how you can learn something from that one instance and roll that forward, how you can start at the graduate stage with that and take that all the way through to HA or lead. That's next week, but thank you so much for joining me this week. Hopefully I will see you again next Thursday where we talk about that. And please comment below and keep in touch with us, because we're always super keen to get your ideas and hear what you would like to know next. Right, now last week we had the problem that there was no end the Facebook Live button. It seems we have the same problem again. So what we did last week was we just ran away by pressing the close tab button. So I'm going to do that again, and then I'll head into the settings and make sure that I'm not talking to myself. But I hope you have a great evening. And we'll see you this time next week. Take care.